and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We got some good tea for you today, and we are joined by the Daily Callers, Reagan Reese and Mary Rooke. Ladies, welcome in. There was quite a moment Saturday night this past weekend. It was the White House Correspondents' dinner. You know, I was there last year. I was invited last year to go, and it was as expected last year. They were very quick to, of course, criticize Donald Trump last year. They were very happy to prop up Joe Biden last year. They even took a knock at me, which was totally fine, whatever. The thing that was a little different this year, Mary, was that instead of just going after Donald Trump, they took a moment for reflection, or so they would like us to believe. They went out on a limb and actually talked about why they feel that maybe the American people have given them one of the lowest approval ratings, the mainstream media, the legacy media, that they've ever had. And they think it's because, well, maybe, Mary, they didn't cover Joe Biden's cognitive decline quite the way they could have. What did you think of that? And do you think that that will now reassure the American people that, oh, at this fancy gala where they all pat themselves on the back for being so superior and special, they're finally acknowledging that, yes, there's something that's been wrong with Joe Biden for years?
You know, it's politically okay right now to say that Joe Biden was not, mentally prepared to hold the office of the president of the United States. So that's the reason why they feel safe enough to come out and say something like that now. But what happened to a year ago? I remember writing a piece for the Daily Caller, and I called Jill Biden Lady McBiden. And the New York Times wrote a piece calling us, right-wing propaganda, and like, how could we hit out at Jill Biden for this? And I look back to those times and I look at where we are now, and it feels kind of like a comedy routine. I don't think the American people are believing it. There's so much more than Joe Biden's mental issues that were, kind of forcing this polling to go so badly for the liberal propaganda press. So we have like this issue here where Americans are woken up to the fact that they are the propaganda arm for the Democratic Party. They sit there and they lie to you about anything that's politically expedient to them. And then now they want to go, oh, but we got this one thing wrong, and look at us, we're like super happy now, and we're admitting our faults, and we're so great, and we're the good guys. We're holding, the powerful, their feet to the fire and all these things, when in reality, it's just like another show for them to go put on and pretend like they're unbiased, pretend like they don't have these issues against the American people. Don't believe it.
Yeah. So, Reagan, one of the speeches in which this was talked about was when Alex Thompson, who works for Axios, won the Aldo Beckman Excellence Award. Here's a little excerpt he had to say. He said, President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him. No self-reflection there that maybe you were part of that. Okay. By the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story, and some people trust us less because of it. Yeah, you mean like when you had Jake Tapper out there berating me in an interview in October of 2020 and telling me I was making fun of Joe Biden's stutter that I didn't know exists? You mean like this little quip from Joe Scarborough? I watched quite a few examples of the liberal media going out of their way to prop up Joe Biden. Here's something that Joe Scarborough said last year. Start your tape here because I'm about to tell you the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden. Reagan, now they're just like, you know what? Maybe we missed something. I don't know. Yeah, but everybody move right along and you can trust us again.
Well, this is why I don't attend this White House Correspondents Association dinner. I'm a White House correspondent myself. I'm a member of the WHCA. Journalism is a public service, and, they just sit there and they pat themselves on the back, and there's no humility whatsoever. Alex Thompson, to his credit, was probably one of the only mainstream media journalists who did try to cover President Biden's decline. He was the one who reported that they were using aides to walk around Joe Biden as he walked from the White House to Marine One to kind of stifle his gait so us journalists couldn't take a photo of him. But largely, the press corps, completely missed President Biden's decline. And it was right there. I'm standing shoulder to shoulder every day for the last year with these journalists in the East Room, in the Oval Office, in the Rose Garden, watching President Biden stumble through his speeches. And we're coming out of there and we are writing two completely different stories. The Daily Caller reported last year from January to April, we went through all of the White House transcripts and public remarks that President Biden made. There were 148 times that President Biden messed up, he misspoke, he completely said something that didn't make sense, wrong title, etc. And the White House had to go in, cross it out, correct it with brackets. That was right there. Those are public documents. It was in front of everybody's eyes. And the only people who thought to report it was the Daily Caller. And,
Wow.
got no coverage by the mainstream media. And so, now it's okay for them to think, oh yeah, this is something we should have covered. I think Joe Biden gets so much flack for dropping out of the race too late, and they blame Joe Biden for being the reason that Kamala Harris lost. It's the media's fault. If the media would have covered Joe Biden and his decline, the party could have had this conversation about him not being able to run far sooner, and they probably wouldn't have been in this situation, where they had to switch candidates last minute. And so that's a conversation they're still not ready to have, and it's infuriating to me.
Wow. Well, it's funny, as you say they missed it. It feels like to a lot of people, they purposely didn't report it. And I think I think that is the big problem the American people have with this particular group of individuals. We rely on journalists, and you got to put it in air quotes, ladies, because most of these people you cannot consider journalists, right? They very clearly have a viewpoint and they're trying to push that viewpoint on you. They're not just giving you the information, they're excluding information because it furthers whatever narrative they're trying to push out there. And I think that's part of the big issue that the American people have. But Reagan, what a great point. And I totally agree with you. It's like a snowball effect that we saw start whenever first of all, they fluffed up Joe Biden so much over the course of that 2020 election. We know about the Hunter Biden laptop. We know how many people, had they known it was true, would have not voted for Joe Biden and possibly voted for Donald Trump. That alone would have been enough to swing that election in favor of President Donald Trump. So that's where you start. And then you get a guy in office who clearly something is wrong with, who we saw it in the duration of the campaign of 2020. They tried to hide him in the basement. They tried to use COVID as, their guise for why Joe Biden can't be out there as much. But then when he got in office, when he got into the White House, and so many people were like, what's going on with Joe Biden? They didn't report on it. And you're right. You had people like Dean Phillips. You had people like RFK Jr. who wanted to primary Joe Biden. The Democrats could have had a totally different past year. They could have had a much different outcome of the election, although I'll still say Donald Trump would have won. But they wouldn't look like such utter fools, Mary. And that's where they are right now. Their base has shrunk to, incredible lows. I think they have a 56% unfavorable rating right now with the American people. They have a 25% approval rating at this point, the Democrats, or could be even lower than that at this point. So they hurt themselves, and all of it could have been avoided, but for the fact that they tried to lie to us, they tried to do a lot of jazz hands. They only have themselves to blame. And maybe to Reagan's point, maybe they could talk to their friends in the liberal media, the mainstream media, and say, why didn't you guys actually tell the truth? Because that could have changed things.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You sit back, and I remember that one Don Lemon video during the election when he's going out and he's talking to people, and he says to this guy, but why is it that you're voting for Donald Trump? Can't you see that Biden is the better candidate? And he's like, the economy is bad, don't you get it? And Don Lemon looks the guy in the face and he's like, well, statistics show that the economy is not bad. And he's like, I'm not a statistic, I'm an actual human being, and I'm telling you right now the economy is bad. And it's the same situation with the whole Biden mental thing. It's we can see it clearly with our eyes that there is something wrong here. The American people are not stupid. They can watch him go out and try and give a 15-minute speech and then start talking about corn pop and the hair on his legs. And then you obviously see that something's wrong here. And it's the same thing with the economy. It's the same thing whenever whenever now we talk about things like illegal immigration or transgender men and women's sports, you can see the truth clearly with your eyes. And so if you have this propaganda arm that's willing to come out and lie to you, like the Washington Post did the other day when they put up that piece about the innocent transgender boy who is pretending to be a girl and how he has to play on male sports and all he wants to do is look the same as other girls. And it's like, you will never be another girl. The truth is, you will never be another girl. And it's actually kinder and more respectful to someone to tell them the truth and rather than put these puff pieces out. But I don't think they're ever going to learn their lesson, which might be good for conservatives, but bad for the people that support them.
It is. It's a wild time. It's almost like and I always feel like the truth ultimately comes out with everything. Yeah. I believe sunlight is disinfectant. You get light in a dark place and man, you start to see things. You're like, wait a minute. There's a lot of that happening right now. I think one of the things that we're also seeing happen is I think there's been a lot of nefarious activity that has gone unnoticed because the people really felt like that in the United States, laws didn't matter. You look at places like California, you can steal almost $1,000 worth of whatever you want. Nothing's going to happen to you. You cross our border illegally over the past 4 years, nothing happened to you. Likewise, you now have judges who are just flagrantly violating the law. These are people who are supposed to enforce the law and adjudicate, and supposed to be unbiased in nature. We all know that that's not true. Look at Judge Juan Merchan, but I digress. You now have a couple of instances with these judges, Reagan. The first of them being a New Mexico judge, I guess a former New Mexico judge and his wife, getting busted for allegedly harboring 3 gang members. These are Tren de Aragua gang members in their home. Then you have the Milwaukee County judge, Hannah Dugan. This one really got me, who went out of her way to, I guess, mislead federal agents is what they're alleging. She misled federal agents so that there was an illegal immigrant who she would, because she's of such high morality, she wanted to help this person break our laws again and evade arrest from local authorities. So
she has now. Abuse victim is in the room. The abuse victim was still in the courtroom. It's so important to point out.
Okay,
it's so disgusting.
The whole thing. Well, then, Mary, tell me your thoughts on this, because that one to me, I think is really insane. Did this woman not think she was going to get caught? And then you have some of these lunatics, like this New York Times reporter, saying that this administration is trying to send a note of intimidation. There will be times of civil disobedience, and it's strikes of somewhat heroic. There's nothing heroic about any of this, Mary.
Where were they whenever they sent armed FBI agents to a man's home who had 10 children as he's praying, because he prayed outside of an abortion clinic? Where are the standards and norms when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, or they arraigned Trump in court, or they paraded him around as their punching bag? I'm so tired of hearing this from people. Actual laws were broken, not made up laws,
right.
Not, you overvalued or undervalued your house. Actual laws were broken here. There's actual victims in these cases.
These are violent crimes.
Right, and I'm so tired of, as soon as I heard that guy was being pulled out the back as his victim and her family are sitting in the courtroom, I'm like, how can you continue to stand up for these people? Like, how can you continue to tell me that due process isn't being done here, and we're erasing all the norms and standards of our country, and there goes democracy? I'm so tired of hearing about it. Honestly, I'm so tired of them saying things like that. There are real Americans getting hurt by these people, and they deserve our protection, and they deserve our care over illegal immigrants, and I'm tired of pretending that it's okay to do that.
It's, Reagan, when you see anyone doing something like this, I think would be outrageous. A judge doing this is just, you wonder, okay, so now my mind goes to, so this is what this judge is willing to do, knowing she was probably going to get caught. What has she done in her courtroom that no one knows about? What kind of stuff has been going on otherwise? That's immediately what I thought. But I just, my favorite part too is the left trying to make some sort of an excuse for this. These people have broken multiple laws. We're following the law in America, finally. We haven't followed it, Reagan, for a long time because Joe Biden didn't care to enforce the laws at our southern border and northern border for that matter. You have people, these DAs and AGs around the country who were just happy to, turn the other cheek when it came to real problems in some of our major American cities and some of these states around the country. And yet, of course, go after President Trump for these outrageous things. We're now applying the law as it's written. We never needed an act of Congress for the southern border. We're doing things the right way now, and it feels like a lot of these people are losing their minds because it's happening. Launchers fired tear gas and kinetic rounds designed to incapacitate attackers for up to 40 minutes, giving you time to escape and call for help without deadly consequences. And now it's time to meet the all-new compact launcher. Sleek, slim, and hits like a sledgehammer. About the size of a smartphone, it's perfect for concealed carry. Comfortable, discreet, and confidence building. The compact launcher fires at 400 feet per second with 41 joules per square inch of stopping power. That's enough force to halt a threat cold without the legal and moral complexities of lethal force. What I love about Byrna is they're proudly American. Over 80% of their compact launcher's components are sourced in the USA, and each unit is hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Best of all, Byrna is legal in all 50 states. No background check and ships directly to your door. And it's trusted by hundreds of police departments and government agencies around the world. Visit Byrna.com to learn more. That's BYRNA.com. MyPillow is excited to announce that they are extending the mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. This is your chance to grab incredible deals on some of MyPillow's most popular and newly released items. You can save $40 on the new spring MyPillow bed sheets, available in any size and any color. These luxurious sheets are designed for maximum comfort and breathability, perfect for a great night's sleep. You can also save 30% on the brand new My Crosses, inspired by the one Mike has worn every day for over 20 years. These beautifully crafted crosses come in both men's and women's designs and are proudly made in the USA. Or get the 6-piece bath or kitchen towel set for just $39.98. Initial quantities are extremely limited, so don't wait. And don't forget about the best-selling standard MyPillow, now just $17.98. Plus, orders over $75 ship for free. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code TRUMP or call 800-624-3945 to order now.
It does feel like people are losing their minds. It's kind of funny how President Trump, I guess, makes these people do really berserk things. But how many times during the Biden administration did you hear of like some insane criminal or someone breaking the law and then they get off scotch-free and we never hear of them again? And now, the Trump administration comes in, and this morning, Caroline Leavitt called a very early, I would say kind of last minute, 8:30 a.m. press briefing to talk about immigration and to talk about the administration's accomplishments on the border. And she brought White House border czar Tom Homan to the briefing. And he sent this very clear message. If you are in this country illegally, if you're breaking the law, if you are doing something that, it goes against our laws, our Constitution, we will find you and you will not be breaking the law anymore, and we will put an end to it. And I think a perfect example of this is these illegal immigrants who allegedly stole Kristi Noem, Secretary Noem's purse. I asked Tom Homan about that today in the briefing, and he said to me, they are this is the worst person they could steal the purse of, because we are going to find them. They've been arrested over the weekend, and apparently Tom Homan told me in the briefing they were illegal immigrants. And they're going to be, looking at cracking down on them and what their fate holds. We'll see. But I think it's just, it's a perfect example. I think him speaking this morning in the briefing room saying, we will not tolerate this. And then for anecdotal evidence, just the White House drive this morning as I walk in is lined with all of these illegal immigrants that ICE has arrested, 100 of them, and all of the crimes. Rape, abuse of children, murder, terrible, terrible things. And that the administration has taken them, they've arrested these guys, and they're getting them out of the country. And that right there, Laura, is the perfect juxtaposition between these two administrations.
It's so true. And, you have obviously these two judges we're talking about are like, they're aiding and abetting, and they're doing something that's outrageous. But you have a lot of these judges who are just trying to stifle the deportation efforts of this administration. And President Trump put out a statement last week. He posted on social media, it was over the weekend. There are so many people who are trying to stop him. He says, we need courageous justice in our country. If the courts don't allow what we've been allowed to do for 250 years, America can no longer be the same. I think he's totally right. I think he says crooked Joe Biden will have destroyed our country with his open border madness and allowing criminals of every type to enter with no retribution. Murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and even the mentally insane will make their home in our country, wreaking havoc like we have never seen before. We have to be allowed, Mary, to get these people out. And this is just another example of where the Democrats totally missed the mark. Where the majority of the American people in polling, Republicans and Democrats alike, say these people need to go. We want them out of our country. President Trump is trying to do that, and he has all these judges trying to get in the way and say, oh, we're not going to let you do that. But President Trump's point is, look, we can't hold a trial for millions of people who have come into this country illegally over the past 4 years. We've got to be able to get the bad ones that we know are bad out, and we got to do it quickly. The best I saw was Babylon Bee last week, who said Democrats demand due process for people who didn't go through the process to get into this country in the first place. Exactly.
They're the best.
Yeah. I know. Honestly, it's so wild to me when I sit back and I look at it, because if the court system can sit back and not say or do anything, because these are like mostly unprovoked, where judges are stepping in and putting injunctions down on the Trump administration for getting these dangerous criminals out of our country. And so if they're going to sit back and stay quiet, as Biden was allowed to let in tens of millions of illegal immigrants into our communities, to take our jobs, to wreck our lives, to make our communities unsafe, if he's allowed to do that, why is it that Trump is not allowed to reverse that?
Get him out.
Especially because we are a country of borders. We are a country of laws. We deserve to have safety. We deserve to be able to protect our citizens. And why is one judge allowed to have the authority over the President of the United States? I understand the calls for checks and balances. I do understand the role of the judicial system, but this is not it. Now the check and balances is against the judicial system, who is overplaying the weight of their power and authority in our country to such a substantial view that not only is it hurting Trump's ability to be able to deport these illegal immigrants, which is a necessary and good thing to do, but it is also hurting their trust with the American people. How many more institutions have to fall because they've kneeled to allegiance with the left-wing ideologies?
Well, they're going to continue to hurt themselves. I'll tell you what's not going to continue: the dyes in our food. I'm ready for it. I'm on the MAHA train. Ladies, let me tell you.
Yes.
For being a Democrat a year ago, Bobby Kennedy is like, I'm all in for all of this. As a mom of two young kids, I look at the ingredients. I was conscious of it before, but I'll tell you, over the past 6 months, man, have I been checking what's in all this stuff. I'll tell you, we don't eat a lot of things at my house anymore. My kids are not allowed to have certain snacks anymore. And I don't want to be one of those moms, but I'm going to be, because I think once you start learning and educating yourself more in terms of what's in there, what that does to your body, and I'm not giving that to my young children whose cells are multiplying at a rapid rate. I'm just not going to do it anymore. Apparently, we are going to officially eliminate artificial dyes in food and medicines, by the way, by 2020. This is very exciting. You had HHS Secretary, of course, Bobby Kennedy, and the FDA Commissioner, Marty Makary, announced last week that petroleum-based synthetic dyes will be eliminated, as I said, for medications in the nation's food supply by the end of 2026. That includes those found in candy, soft drinks, desserts, breakfast cereals, and jam. The agency said it would set a standard and deadline for the industry to transition to natural alternatives and take action to remove remaining colors from the market. Now, Bobby Kennedy, by the way, had a meeting with all of the big food companies in the country, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago. And he told them all that this was coming down the pike, that they better get ready, Reagan. They better be ready to start getting this stuff out. My question is, I understand that we like to have things look a certain way. There's nothing natural about so many of these kids' cereals. There's nothing natural about like a Mountain Dew color or like whatever the blue. There's some blue soda. I'm like, this stuff doesn't be in there. You can still have things taste the same way. I mean, some of that stuff I don't want anything to do with. But you go over to Europe, so much of this stuff is not in their food supply, and you have to look at the rates of cancer, deadly disease, and obesity in this country. And I am, for one, incredibly grateful that we have someone stepping in and saying, enough is enough, we're drawing the line here, and these things are going to be out.
Well, first, I'll just say, for anyone worried about things not looking as aesthetically pleasing or as appetizing, I made Valentine's Day sugar cookies, and I used beet juice to dye the cookies pink. And couldn't taste the beet juice at all. They were still scrumptious.
Although I love beet juice, to be honest.
Yes. I did not really like the smell, and I was kind of skeptical when I put it in. But it worked. So that's my MAHA tip. Just, anecdotally, I was a college athlete, and so I was very worried about what was going in my body and reading the ingredients. And sometimes you're on the go and you're like, yeah, okay, I'll just reach for that quick cereal, and it doesn't make you feel good. And then you start to read the ingredients. You're like, I literally cannot pronounce this. I have no idea what this is. And I started to feel this way even about just flavored waters. We have infused waters here at the office. And I started reading the ingredients for the cucumber mint lime water that we have. And it says like key lime flavoring mix. And I was like, okay, this isn't cucumber mint, like nothing healthy. And I do think that these things are linked to the obesity rate and the diseases and the illnesses that, are plaguing our nation. And just something I've been getting into personally, just as a young woman, as you start to look at wanting to have a family and then wanting your kids to also be healthy and just being more conscious of what is going into your body. And so when I see the mainstream media freaking out about this, I just, have you guys eaten an apple? Do you realize how better you feel when you eat an apple as opposed to that sugary cereal? It just is such common sense. It's unbelievable.
Well, you guys at the Caller, by the way, had a reporter drop 9 pounds halfway through like some MAHA transformation. Apparently, all this person did was eliminate seed oils and anything processed. So, I mean, Reagan, like you're saying, eating whole foods. Mary, this is how our bodies are supposed to work. We're supposed to eat the apple as it comes off the tree, the food as it comes out of the ground, whatever it is. We are so used to and so conditioned to just grab this trash, this stuff that isn't even real food. Because, I mean, there's no doubt, I know they've done all these studies, that it stimulates the same part of your brain that like drugs do, some of this stuff. But it's proof is in the pudding. You guys had this reporter drop all this weight, not even really trying and only just kind of eating whole foods.
I know, honestly, you can see him in the meetings and you can already see like the weight loss, like right here in his face and like on his neck, like, and he's got a glow about him. He looks really healthy. I think he's enjoying the process that he's going through. But I will say that whenever I switched from, it was probably about like 5 or 6 years ago, it was, I decided I was going to go to a Whole Foods and like just eat whole foods, no soda, nothing artificial. And I remember there being like a week-long period where it felt like I was going through drug detox.
Yes.
Like I seriously felt I was sweating. I didn't sleep well. Like your body just like excretes like the poison that you've been putting inside it. And it wasn't until then that I realized truly how bad our food system was. And I switched all the kids over. Like we were never really like a cereal family, but for their birthday or whatever, we'd let them go pick a box of cereal. I was always big on like eggs and whatever for breakfast. We don't even do that anymore. Like our kids look at cereal and are like, mommy says that's poison. So we can't eat
well,
that
by
now.
the way, what's funny is the kids pick up on so much. And this is what I've noticed. How old are your kids, Mary?
So my oldest will be 14 in May. My youngest just turned 8. So I have 2 in between.
Yeah. So my kids are 5 and 7 and they pick up on so much. more than we even realize. And what's funny is that my kids now, my daughter was like basically reading the riot act to my son the other day. My daughter had a soccer game, and my son's was the day before. So my son came with us to the soccer game and, was just playing, kicking a ball around with some other kids, but didn't actually play the game. Well, our rule is that, you have these snacks at the end of soccer.
Yes,
and hopefully
so
Bobby Kennedy can get us some better snacks. But our rule is, look, if you played in the game and they have a Gatorade at the end and the little Gatorades, you get to have that. Well, my son got a Gatorade for himself, and he didn't play the game. So my daughter immediately was like, you know what, Luke? That's extra sugar, and you're going to get diabetes.
That's crazy.
That. And I was like, has she been listening to me? They're picking up on all of this.
That's
and
awesome.
So I love to hear, Mary, that you have actively talked with your kids about why this isn't healthy. I've been trying to do somewhat of that to my kids as well. I told them they can't have Cheetos because it's got the dyes in there.
Or
you
Takis.
see that red dye 3 gives the lab rats cancer. I'm not giving that to my children.
Exactly.
But it's something else that I think is going to come out. Hopefully, they say by August, that Bobby Kennedy says we're going to have a lot of information about autism and what's causing that. And Reagan, I wonder from you, as a young woman, like you said, who's thinking about her future one day and having a family one day, that must be a relief to you, because for so long we've seen these rates of autism continue to increase. And by the way, it's almost been an untouchable subject, like something you can't talk about. You're not even allowed to really discuss. I remember taking my kids for their first checkups as babies, as like a week-old baby at the doctor's office, at the pediatrician. And the second that I was like, well, I think I want to space out the shots, they were like, what? You don't need to do that. That's crazy. We're going to start talking about it more, and I think we're going to get to hopefully the bottom of this. If nothing, again, for moms in the future, hopefully you have an easier time than those of us have had in the past, like 10 years, 20 years, when people kind of judged you for saying, I want to space out, the shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the way that DEI and CRT and all those things are uncool now to talk about, and you can't really be shamed for those things. I think that we are on a path with talking about autism and being linked to different various things in our environment can one day be acceptable. And I think that's that's a perfect encapsulation of the Trump administration and the people that he's installed. Real quick on Rob's journey, I just want to throw this back in there. Yeah. One thing that's really key in this is he's also kind of taking care of his mental health. And they were partnered with this health firm that's essentially advising him in this journey. And they noticed from his blood levels that he had really high stress levels. And that kind of plays a role in your body and weight gain and just your happiness. And so what they've advised him to do is quite literally once a day to go outside and touch grass, to take his shoes off, to put his feet on the ground and just to be grounded, to do an 8-minute meditation, and just the wonders that being sound in your mind and also while working on your body can do for an individual. I think both in your relationships, in your work environment, in your social life, etc., is astounding. And so that's one thing that he is credited in his journey, in this health journey and losing this weight, is taking down his stress levels.
Wow.
And in a nation that, I'm in a stressful job. I think everybody is experiencing so much stress in their everyday life. Just knowing that, taking that 8 minutes a day to put your feet on the grass, block out any noise, and to relax can actually lead to tremendous health benefits. It's that easy. And that's all that Secretary Kennedy is trying to tell us with all of these things.
Well, and I just think that we're now able to just have a conversation about these things. For my Fox show, My View, I interviewed Gary Brecka. This guy is one of these kind of health gurus. He's into the biohacking and stuff. But when you talk to people who really understand the human body, he could explain to me why seed oils are bad for you. You hear seed oil, but you don't really know it. These people, Reagan, to your point, will say, getting outside and letting sunlight hit your body is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Most people have a depletion of vitamin D. Vitamin D is one of the most important vitamins in your body. I guess my point is that we're finally talking about these things. They're finally becoming more common for people to understand, because we've lived so long with this knee-jerk, you know what, let me get a pharmaceutical for that kind of mentality, that I am incredibly excited that we're now at a place where we're not going to knee-jerk that way anymore, or at least people have the option to go outside and do a little grounding, take your shoes off, put your feet in the grass. And it's funny because my husband and I live in Florida now. We've been down here for almost 4 years. And I look at day to day how I physically feel. And he and I were talking about it the other day, and I was like, I just feel better living down in Florida. And what we both decided is it's because we, for at least, 15 minutes a day, are able to get direct sunlight on our skin. We typically walk around, because we live in Florida, with no shoes on outside. We're doing these things anyway. And I see my kids do it too. And I'm like, God, this is such so much more of a healthier way to live than, oh my God, well, I have this headache because I'm this, that, and that. I'm just going to take some more Advil or Tylenol or whatever it is. This is how our bodies, again, to go back to the beginning, are supposed to function. It's so much easier and so much better for us to do these things. So, Mary, I just love that we're talking about it, that it will become hopefully more common knowledge that these are also ways that you can function as a human being, and you can feel so much better because of it.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing worse than being like a new time parent and going into the pediatrician's office and just simply asking them a question and then jumping on you for just wondering about something. Yeah. Now, I remember with my third, she had a very severe reaction to the MMR vaccine. And I told our pediatrician at the time, I'm like, this isn't normal. I know it's not normal. And she's like, no, it's perfectly normal. I'm like, she has quarter-size whelps from head to toe all over her. This is not, she's been running a fever for a week. This is not normal. I remember having to fight tooth and nails to get her in the VEER system. And it was after that. And the funny thing is that when I was in college, I won like a Writing and Excellence Award for defending vaccines. And so here I am just like simply asking a question about the MMR vaccine and my real life situation. And so I think that if we can get back to where medicine will like listen to the patients, listen to the parents, actually help them understand some of these things rather than just immediately casting them off as like conspiracy theorists, we'd get a lot better, result and reaction from the American people for it. But I think that's why there's so much distrust in the medical, institution because of these kinds of things.
100%. Well, I didn't mean for the whole end of this show to turn into like a medical discussion, but I'm excited about it. And look, this stuff impacts everybody every day in this country and all around the world. And I just feel like, we're on the edge of so much. We're on the edge of so many great things for the future of America. And I honestly, maybe the most important of them, and I think President Trump acknowledged this. He said, one of the most important things you can do as a president is ensure the health of your country. And that's why choosing, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his HHS secretary was so big and such a big deal. And the people who fought against him, I hope look back one day and realize how ridiculous they sounded. That here's a person who really just wants to give people more information, who wants to expose the truth about things and give people alternatives instead of constantly going down the path of taking a drug for everything that we have happen in our lives. It's just exciting. So thanks for indulging me, ladies, at the end of the show on all my crazy MAHA stuff. I absolutely love it. Reagan and Mary, thank you both for joining us today. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide. and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.